Hello, this is Dr. Kavian Malani for Virginia Medical Updates. Today we'll be talking about cholesterol and a breakdown of cholesterol and the times where it's essential to treat cholesterol with statins or other medications. As you know, cholesterol is a natural product that the body makes by itself. It is a building block of cell wall. It's a building block of multiple substrates in the body. The body does use cholesterol to build hormones. It is a building block of a number of important hormones and substances. And so therefore, the production of cholesterol by the liver is really essential, and it is an essential part of life. Now, cholesterol, when it builds up in the form of plaque, in the form of bad cholesterol, and causes endothelial damage in the arteries and in the small capillaries, it basically creates a situation where inflammation kicks in, and the patient then has the buildup of plaque and hardening of the arteries, and these plaques can rupture and then cause heart attacks downstream. So in general, cholesterol has been a major issue for the medical community and for the community at large for decades now, and there seems to be some very important studies and important knowledge that has been gathered and accumulated over the past 20 years. In general, so cholesterol is a product that the body makes by itself. The cholesterol obviously comes in different forms. So there is the HDL cholesterol, which basically is the high density lipoprotein cholesterol. This cholesterol is known as the good cholesterol. Then there is the LDL. The LDL is known as the bad cholesterol, and it's thought to be the one that is most involved in atherogenesis and in any kind of problem in terms of the cholesterol buildup and coronary artery disease. So the total cholesterol is usually what people talk about in terms of my cholesterol. People will say my cholesterol is 160, my cholesterol is 220. That's the number they're talking about, which is a summation of these two plus another element. The most important thing about cholesterol is that this level by itself is almost irrelevant to your well-being. So the total cholesterol that we talk about really by itself is not enough information to make any clinical decision based on the one number. So the issue really is, how is this cholesterol packaged by the body, and what are the proportions of different types of cholesterol in the body? So let's say, for example, that someone's cholesterol is 220. Well, this number appears to be too high, correct? Because we all have a mental picture of the ideal cholesterol being around 200 or less, correct? However, if this person has an HDL of, let's say, 75, then this person's risk ratio with such a wonderful, good HDL basically is going to be, the risk will be equal to the total cholesterol divided by the good cholesterol. Now pay attention here, this is important. So when you're in the doctor's office, or when you look at your numbers online or read about them, you can actually figure out what the risk is. So the risk really is going to be total cholesterol divided by the good cholesterol. So if this is 220 and your good cholesterol is about 75, mental math will give you that this is about a ratio of 3. And a ratio of 3 basically is very good, because a 5 would be average risk, a 3.5 would be half average risk, and therefore a 3 is below half average risk. And that is a very, very good number for cholesterol. Now, in terms of cholesterol, if you had the same patient with a HDL of, let's say, for example, instead of 75, let's go with an HDL of 30, okay? This person's risk ratio would be what? Would be 220 divided by 30. And the risk ratio here, you could tell by mental math, is going to be more than 7, correct? So 7 is high. And 7 is high because 9 is 2 times average risk. So you can see that by a simple alteration in the number of HDL, risk and cardiac risk goes up and goes down. So really one important factor in wellness is the HDL number. A number that I have here for 30 is most consistent with people that are out of shape, diabetics, people that have obesity, people that don't have physical activity, or genetically have low HDL. And that is by itself a risk factor. Now, people on the other hand that have high HDL, like the number that I gave you for 75 for our hypothetical patient, that is a very high number. That's something that I see in marathon runners and in elite athletes, or some people that have kind of genetically very high HDL. So I want everyone to focus on this ratio. So the ratio of the total cholesterol to your HDL good cholesterol is an important way to figure out and navigate, and it's an easy way for all of us to begin to, as people that are vested in our own care, to follow and track our well-being. So don't get too worried about a particular number. What you really have to be worried about and concerned and focused on is this risk ratio of a total cholesterol divided by a good cholesterol. Let me give you an example. If I ask someone, what is your risk of exposure in the stock market, for example? You could say, well, my risk of exposure in the stock market is my total investment divided by my good investment. The larger your good investment is, the larger your good is, the risk goes down. The same thing happens with cholesterol. So if you have a very strong, solid HDL, then your cholesterol actually really doesn't matter what the number is per se. Basically, the ratio, if it's low, is very beneficial. And in fact, studies have shown that an HDL of 59 and above is actually protective. It's a negative risk factor for cholesterol. So by itself, if you can push your cholesterol, your HDL cholesterol above 59, that does decrease your risk factor significantly. So let's say, for example, that I'm a person that is interested in my health. I have a cholesterol that's somewhat high. I have an LDL that is kind of there, but my HDL is 50. But I began to train for races, do biking, I do kind of some physical training, some lifting, and by exercise, I push my HDL, for example, up to about 59. At that point, my risk has actually significantly decreased, and that is a negative risk factor. So I'm a male, and for example, males have more risk of heart disease. A cholesterol HDL of 59 would then revert that risk back to normal. So this is a very exciting place where people can take control of their own HDL and begin to figure out how to navigate this difficult terrain. In the next session, I would like to talk about how to manage cholesterol using exercise and using medication that are called statins in terms of risk and how to reduce the risk for heart disease using these medications. Thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing you at the next program for Virginia Medical Updates. Again, this is Dr. Milani.
Welcome to Virginia Medical Updates. My name is Alejandra Gonsalves, and today we're here with Dr. Majid Fatouhi. Thank you for being with us here today, Dr. Fatouhi.
Thank you.
Dr. Fatouhi is a Harvard and Johns Hopkins trained neurologist and neuroscientist. Dr. Fatouhi is widely regarded in the field of memory, aging, and increasing brain vitality in late life. He has numerous publications with 25 years of teaching experience, clinical work, and neuroscience research. He is currently the medical director of NeuroGrown Brain Fitness Center, the chief medical officer at NeuroCore Brain Performance Center, and affiliate staff at Johns Hopkins. Today we will be discussing stress and the brain. Thank you again, Dr. Fatouhi, for being here.
It's my pleasure to be here with you. Thank you.
So today we're going to be discussing stress on the brain. So Dr. Fatouhi, tell us, how big of a role does stress make on our brains?
Stress is really bad for every organ in your body. Stress is, for example, bad for your skin. The more stress you have, the more your skin wrinkles. Right. Stress also is bad for your heart. The more stressed you are, the more likely it is that you will have a heart attack. But stress is particularly bad for your brain. It increases the risk of stroke, but it also contributes to shrinkage in the brain. Let me give you a tour of the brain.
Sure.
So this is a model of the brain, and this outer layer of the brain is called cortex.
Okay.
This is where the higher cognitive functions reside. The front of the brain is for decision making. The sides of the brain is for listening and hearing. There are parts of the brain deep inside. It's called hippocampus. That's important for memory. There's also parts of the brain inside and also around the midline that are important for your emotions and how you feel.
Okay.
These parts of the brain can shrink if you're stressed out too much. In fact, there's a relationship between the degree of stress and the duration of stress and how much your hippocampus shrinks. So people who are stressed all the time, they're actually contributing to the shrinkage in the brain that eventually can lead to the Alzheimer's disease.
So is this something that can be measured? Obviously, the stress level and what that does in relation to your brain, to the hippocampus?
Yes, that's an excellent question. The more stressed you are, the more there will be levels of a hormone in your blood called cortisol. And the high levels of cortisol can actually affect the skin, the heart, and the brain.
Okay.
And so we can measure how stressed you are by measuring the cortisol levels in your body, in your blood.
Okay, great. So that's definitely something that we could, if you feel that way, you could find your doctor and get that checked out if you needed to. But of course, that's affecting the brain, the hippocampus as well.
Yes, and recently there's another way of looking at the brain and to find out if somebody's stressed or not. Because sometimes as a neurologist, I see a patient who smiles and seems all happy on the outside, but in the inside, in their brain, there's a lot of stress. Their brain is overly active, and there are lots of connections. There's a chaos in the brain, but on the outside, they look like they're calm. And this is called quantitative EEG or brain mapping. This is
Okay.
one more way we can look at someone and decide whether or not they're experiencing high levels of stress and anxiety.
Okay, so brain mapping, is that something that is done there you can do in your office, or a test that is done at a radiology center?
Yeah, brain mapping is not routinely available at radiology centers. We do have it at my brain center, and a few other places in the area also
Okay.
offer quantitative EEG, also known as brain mapping.
Okay, so really it's these expectations that we have for something that the outcome is causing the stress because we're expecting that it's going to be a certain way when really we should just think either there will be traffic or I will have to wash the dishes myself.
No, so with the ABC model, with the spouse, the action happens and the B says, my husband never works in the house, and then if he ever does the dishes once, you're happy.
Right.
Or you give him a reward that will make him want to do the dishes, and then the consequence will be different. So the stress is self-induced. We're stressed because we make ourselves stress. Now, sometimes there's a fire in a fire or a flood, and those things are natural things that induce the stress. So the most important thing to do to be less stressed is to be mindful of your belief system and realize that it's you who's causing the stress on yourself, and that's bad for your heart, for your skin, and your brain.
Okay.
The second thing is good for reducing stress level is to make sure you have had a good night's sleep. When you don't sleep enough, the cortisol levels in your body are high when you wake up in the morning.
So that's the stress level increasing.
So your body is already stressed. And because you have not enough sleep, you cannot make good decisions. So you get into arguments, you do not get your job done well, and bad things happen to you.
Okay.
So you really need to make sure that you get your 8 hours of sleep, and you should make that a priority. So if you have to check Facebook or go to sleep, just go to sleep.
Right, yeah, and with social media, I know that's probably one of the hardest things where people have to cut off, leave their phones out of the room, and make sure that it's something that the 8 hours are the most important part then.
That's right.
Okay.
A lot of people say, well, everybody has sleep problems, so I have sleep problems too. That's not a good argument, because other people may be smoking, other people have bad habits. Just because other people have it, it doesn't mean you should be doing it.
Right.
So with the sleep, you have to make sure your room is quiet, the room is dark. You have to make sure that sleeping is the only thing you do in your bedroom, no exercise machine, no TV, no eating, and those sort of things. So then the third thing on the list is to meditate.
Okay.
When you meditate, you reduce the cortisol levels in your body. Also, meditation increases blood flow to the brain. So when you when you meditate, you not only calm your brain, reduce the levels of cortisol, you also increase blood flow to your brain, so your brain becomes younger. You rejuvenate your brain when you meditate.
So what would you say in detail for someone who doesn't meditate or doesn't even know, okay, what do I have to do to meditate?
So a simple way to start meditation is to sit down in a quiet room, take your shoes off, put your feet on the floor, and put your hand on your belly, and then take a slow, deep breath. So like that. And you can count to a count of 7 to take a deep breath, then hold it for a count of 7 and breathe out for a count of 7.
Okay, I'm trying it now as you're saying it, okay.
You'll be amazed how quickly you feel calm when you do the breathing exercises. You could do this when you're driving, for example, or if you're just sitting waiting for things. So those slow breathing is a good way to start. Another thing you can do is that when you're sitting and breathing, you think of a mantra, a peace or beauty or ocean, and then you keep repeating that. And every time your new thoughts come to your mind, you try to just push it aside and think about that. So
Okay.
to clear your mind.
Concentrate on that one mantra. And how often should this be done? Every day?
I usually recommend 10 minutes, maybe 4 days a week.
Okay.
More importantly, you have to have the ABC model in your mind. So when you get upset, ask yourself, what caused me to be upset, and how can I change my view so I will not have this experience again?
Okay, great. So we have the ABC model, making sure that we're getting enough sleep, and the meditation.
The fourth thing on the list is something called neurofeedback. Neurofeedback is an EEG biofeedback treatment that's available in some centers in this area. We also offer it in my brain center. With neurofeedback, we show a person their brain activity.
Okay.
And every time their brain activity moves toward normal, they get a reward. The reward could be a sound, something that happens on the screen, or a game that they move forward to. And neurofeedback has been shown to reduce stress and anxiety by 80 or 90%.
Okay, so it's a reward system for your brain.
Yes, it's based
Okay.
on operant conditioning that helps you change your brain chemistry and your brain structure. See, meditation is one way to do it because you try to calm your brain. But with neurofeedback, which is the EEG biofeedback mechanism, we take control of your brainwave activity, and then we reward you every time it becomes normal. So your brain should be here, and it's here. We set a reward if you come from here to here, and so your brain calms down a little bit. And the reward, again, this could be something happens on the screen. A ball
that you
goes
see.
up, a balloon moves, a butterfly comes to you, and the more it comes to you, it means that your brain is calming down.
Okay.
And it usually takes 24 sessions because it's not just medication. The other thing I recommend is for people to stay away from medications. Unless you have bad anxiety, depression, natural interventions are best for managing stress and anxiety. It's best not to get stressed in the first place,
Right.
rather than have medications to reduce and calm your brain.
Okay, so not having medications for the stress is what you mean. Okay, great. So thank you so much. That's wonderful. The neurofeedback is really interesting, and maybe we can go into that a little bit further at another time. But we'll definitely keep in mind that ABC mantra of making sure that we're the ones in control of the stress, the sleep, and the meditation time. And of course, we'll discuss a little bit more about the neurofeedback. So thank you, Dr. Fatuhi. It was a pleasure to have you here with us today. Thank you for joining us. My name is Alejandra Gonsalves, and this is Virginia Medical Updates.
Hello. Today I'll be introducing a book called Brain Hack. Brain Hack is a very interesting book written by Neil Pavitt. It is really a compilation of some of the most interesting and intriguing facts about the brain and about the brain function. And there are some very interesting points in this book. The book is a 2016 book, and it really summarizes a lot of incredible data and incredible facts that are very useful, very fun, and are assembled and put together in a wonderful way. So I think this is one of the most interesting books of 2016, in my opinion. The brain has about 100 billion neurons, cells, that connect to each other. And the connections of the brain are about 100 trillion connections. Imagine that 100 billion neurons connect in a way in which there is 100 trillion connections. The complexity of this system is unbelievable. Every behavior, every habit, every addiction, every genius idea stems from this neural marvel. Over the past 20, 30 years, a lot of data, a lot of interesting facts have come out. Researchers have been researching, the neuroscientists have been studying, papers have been published, and Neil Pavitt has managed to pull all of these together in one volume. Imagine that. So if you're looking for the influence of colors on theft, if you're looking for the body poses that up testosterone and lower cortisol, if you're looking at ways of achieving peak performance through practice hours, all of these issues are brought out by Neil Pavitt and are basically treated in the book called Brain Hack. And it's a very fun, readable, and enjoyable text. It's good for a plane, it's good for a picnic, it's good for a vacation day, it's good for reading on the metro or the metro bus. In general, it's a fantastic, fun, and small book, so it's very manageable. And also, I think that is one of those books that summarizes a lot of very useful and valid data. So in general, Brain Hack, that's what that is, ways to hack your brain to function better or to hack other people's brain so they function the way that you like. That is really what Brain Hack is about. And it's really a fun book and a very interesting book. And I highly recommend this book for a general readership, and it is a very good and easy read. Let's say you want to study and see how can you influence someone to follow your lead. Is there a particular color that you can dress, or a little color that you could not dress in to influence people more? What does the color pink, for example, have in terms of ability to attract people? How is it the color red makes you stand out? Why is it the color blue, if it's used in a particular place, can actually decrease crime? So these are all particular ways that have been studied and have been examined by scientists, neuroscientists, psychologists, and researchers. But for you and I, it would be very difficult to spend hundreds of hours in a medical library, in a psychology library, in a science library, to begin to actually extract all this data, right? So this kind of detailed analysis, this kind of focused work takes a lot of time and is hard. Thankfully, Neil Pavitt has done this. So one person has studied a lot of literature, a lot of studies, hundreds of studies, and all very up to date, and has brought these studies out and has now compiled them into one book, one very readable, enjoyable, and amazing book. And it's a book that I first bought in Toronto Airport, but ever since then I bought a number of copies for my colleagues, for my friends, for my students as gifts, because I think it's a really very interesting book. And I think everyone that has read the book has liked it. And the book does present some very, very fun facts and some real practical tools. So as I have studied the book and I've looked at the sources for the book, I can say confidently that the sources are really very reliable and they're deeply scientific and very well versed, and the material he brings out are incredible items that are very useful for the general readership, as well as for people that have an interest in the topic of psychology, human behavior, and neuroscience like myself.
Welcome to Virginia Medical Updates. Today we are going to work on our core muscle. Like any exercise routine, we're going to start off with warm-up. We're going to start off with march in place for about 2 minutes to just raise our heartbeat. March in place. We're going to pick up our knees. Slow down. We're going to start our exercise with plank, which is a great core muscle. We are going to get on our knees in the floor, and I need a mat right now, but it's okay if you don't have a mat. You just come to the push-up position like this. Your body should be a straight line from head to toe. Make sure your hip is not sagging and it's not arched like this. And you keep your glutes and your abs tight and lifted. And hold. You can also, if you have any shoulder problem, you can go to your forearms. Make sure that your forearms should be under your shoulders. And keep breathing. There are so many different variations of planks, but today I'm just showing you the basic one. So the next one is side plank. It's the same thing. You just get on your side. As I said, your forearm should be under your shoulder, and you lift up your hip. And like any other exercise, you have to do both sides. Thank you for watching Virginia Medical Updates. My name is Farnaz, and until 2 weeks' time, be safe, be active, and see you next time.